Hi there, I'm Kirsty Wiseman and I'd show you how I do my shading techniques when it comes to skin tone. Now everybody's different and there's no hard and fast rule, and I think that when people start with pro markers especially, they think they've got to buy every single colour of skin tone. There's several, there's probably about 6 really good ones that I know of. And if I am going to use 2 colours, my 2 favourite combinations is almond and dusky pink. There are people would argue and say, "Ooh, I'd never use those," and "Oh, I'd never thought of using those." It's really down to a matter of personal taste, but I find it often quite confusing, especially when you start with pro markers. Everybody wants every single colour straight away, and obviously funds dictate whether you should or not buy the entire collection, and you think, alright, I need to buy a good vast range of colours, and buying 2 skin tone colours straight away that you might not necessarily like can sometimes be a little bit of a drain on your finances. So I actually only shade with 1 pen, okay, and I don't know if you can see on my colouring here that the shading I have done here is just going over an old area with the same pen. I'll show you what will happen if I go over it with a darker one. So the face that I've coloured in my little girl here has been done in almond. If I was to go over it again with dusky pink, which is a shade darker rather, yeah, it's really nice and it sets off the shading quite nicely. However, I just don't like that obvious colour introduction. Okay, some people like it and that's fine. Personally, I just prefer to get the most out of just 1 pen. That way you can spend more money on more colours. So I'm going to ink up my dolly again and I'll show you how I did it. Now I always use Memento ink. This was kind of given to me by the people on the Sukaniko stand out at CHA. It is by far the best ink that you can colour in your stamps with, because the pro marker, as you know, when it's mixed with archival ink like the Ranger archival or the StazOn, the colours will bleed together once you start colouring over the lines. So Memento, let me tell you, is the best stampers ink for when you're colouring in with your pro markers. That is straight from the horse's mouth. Okay, so I'm going to take my almond, which is my favourite skin tone, and I'm going to colour all of her face in. Now there are people that suggest you colour in circles. If you colour in a face quick enough, you do not have to use these circle techniques or what have you, because these pens are solvent based, and when the alcohol dries, if you colour in quick enough, you don't get no obvious overlap of colours. Do you remember when you was a child? I'll give you for instance now. When you was a child, you'd colour in your projects and you'd go like this, and then you'd have an overlap, and then you'd overlap again. You'd get the obvious strength of colour, but if you're quick enough to colour in one area over and over again, you don't get no obvious light and shade. So this is why it does take a bit of practice to start with, and so don't become despondent, you know, have faith in your pens. I'm just going to colour in her arms as well, dead quickly while I'm here. Again, this is only my personal preference. There's no, like I say, no hard and fast rule. And we do have people saying, "Oh, I've fallen out with my pro markers, it's not doing what I want it to do," and plus the fact people can't understand how light and shade falls. Well, I'll give you a little tip on how I work out light and shade. Now that I've given her a first coating of skin tone on her face and her arms, I either imagine my son is on this side or my son is on this side. I normally have it to the right. So when the sun falls on an object or a person, all the shade will fall underneath. Okay, so you can imagine that this part of her face and on top of her arms are going to be a lot lighter. So I would start colouring in underneath where her arms are here to give it shade. Okay, don't worry, there's going to be no hard or fast line between the two coats of colours that I'm giving. And I'll do it underneath here because the sun is falling this way. Okay, I would do underneath her hairline and to the underside of her face here. But I'm just going to curve it round because the sun is only hitting this, it would only hit really this part of her face. Okay, and again, there are people that would argue differently on how they would colour in. This is only my preference. So you can see the same colour pen providing a light and a darker shade by just going over the same area. However, once the alcohol evaporates, it doesn't create a hard line between the two applications. So there you go. That's how I would colour in my little dolly using skin tones. And then when you do become a little bit more obsessed, which you will do when it comes to pro markers, then you can start introducing your other colours, which does look nice. But when you first want to start, you want one of each colour, and you need to build it up, and then you need to start buying the darker shades and the lighter tones. But this will just help you for now, and just to prove that you can get the same effects from one pen as what you do with possibly two. Thanks for watching.